The metal corridors of Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters echoed with distant footsteps. In the twilight hours, the institute stood silent, almost peaceful. But peace had been a stranger for too long. Tensions within the mutant community had reached a breaking point. Some followed Charles Xavier's dream. Others, pushed by pain, betrayal, and loss, believed the dream was dead. Tonight, two brothers stood on opposite sides, a training hall deep beneath. The school's surface was reactivated after years of disuse. It was cavernous and dim, lit only by harsh fluorescent strips and the occasional spark from old wiring. A danger room without the simulations, just steel walls, reinforced floors, and an arena forged for something raw. Wolverine stood at the center, claws already out, gleaming in the cold light. His breathing was low and steady, but his eyes, those feral, battle-worn eyes, held a storm barely contained. Across from him, Colossus stepped forward with a rumble of metal grating against itself. His transformation was nearly silent now, after years of mastery. His once kind expression had hardened into something distant, not angry, resolute, like a mountain that decided it would no longer be moved. "You really gonna do this, bub?" Logan growled, claws twitching. Piotr's voice was deep, calm, yet heavy. "You left us. You chose bloodshed over balance. This isn't just about ideology anymore. This is about the safety of everyone here." Wolverine took a slow step forward. "I didn't leave, Piotr. I just stopped pretending. The world's not gonna change by turning the other cheek." The air between them tightened like a taut wire. Old friendships, shared battles, memories of standing side by side against Sentinels, Apocalypse, Magneto, all meaningless now. Without warning, Colossus charged. The ground shook under his massive weight. Logan ducked to the side, claws slashing out, a shallow cut across Piotr's chest, sparking against organic steel. The strike barely fazed him. Colossus swung his massive arm like a hammer. Wolverine took it full in the ribs and flew across the room, slamming into the wall hard enough to leave an imprint. Blood trickled from Logan's lip. He grinned. "All right, guess we're doing this the hard way." He launched forward, a whirlwind of muscle and fury. This time he didn't aim to scratch, he aimed to stab. His adamantium claws slashed across Colossus's forearm, then drove toward his shoulder joint. Sparks flew as claw met steel, but the metal gave. Barely. Piotr winced, stepped back, and responded with a punch that cracked the air like thunder. Logan flipped backward midair, landed low, then surged forward again. The room became a battleground of opposites, ferocity versus control, rage against resolve. Wolverine circled like a predator, aiming for tendons, joints, weak spots. Every time he got in close, he left a mark. Small punctures, gashes, even metal, it turned out, could bleed under the right pressure. But Colossus wasn't idle. He absorbed the damage and countered with bone-crushing force. One punch snapped Logan's shoulder out of place. Another sent him rolling across the floor, coughing blood. If anyone else had taken those hits, they'd be dead. But not Logan. He stood again, healing rapidly, eyes glowing with the fire of a berserker unleashed. "You were always the heart, Piotr," he rasped, stalking forward. "Now you're just another steel wall standing in my way." Colossus clenched his fists. "And you were always the soul. Logan, now you're just a weapon without purpose." The clash resumed. Claws struck armor. Fists shattered concrete. Wolverine leapt off walls, pounced from above, slashing like a wild animal. Colossus countered, grabbing him midair and slamming him into the floor, hard enough to crater it. Logan twisted free, flipped over his back, and drove his claws into Piotr's shoulder blade, finding the edge between plates. A roar of pain echoed through the chamber. Colossus spun, flung Wolverine across the room. Logan hit the far wall, shattered a support beam, and dropped to one knee. His breathing was heavier now. Healing factor or not, even he had limits. Colossus bled molten silver from several deep wounds. He didn't speak now. There was no need. This wasn't about words anymore. The temperature dropped. The air grew heavier. What had begun as a confrontation between old allies had now become something else. A duel of legacy. A test of which path the X-Men would follow. As Logan rose once more, claws gleaming with fresh blood, he muttered through gritted teeth, "I don't want to kill you. Pete, but I damn sure ain't letting you stop me." Colossus straightened to full height, the room groaning around his massive frame. "Then come, Logan, let the future be forged in steel or broken by it." They charged each other again, the impact shaking the very walls of the mansion beneath them. The air trembled as metal met muscle once more. Wolverine lunged like a beast unchained, his claws leading the charge in a triple slash that aimed high, low, and through. Colossus braced for the impact, raising both arms. The adamantium met organic steel in a flash of white-hot sparks, the screeching sound echoing like blades across bone. Colossus staggered back as 3 deep gashes burned into his metallic skin. He countered with a knee like a battering ram, catching Logan in the gut. The force lifted him off the ground and sent him skidding backward. But before Colossus could press the advantage, Wolverine was already up, spitting blood, laughing. "You hit harder than a sentinel. Pete, I'll give you that," he growled, wiping blood from his chin. "But I've been torn apart, stabbed in the head, and nuked in Madripoor. You think this'll stop me?" With a roar, Logan dashed again. This time he didn't go for quick slashes. He leapt at Colossus's chest, wrapped his arms around the steel giant's neck, and drove his claws deep into the collarbone, twisting with brutal efficiency. Colossus screamed in pain, the sound vibrating the very floor. But even in agony, Piotr reacted like a warrior. He slammed his fists together and clapped, Logan's head between them like a war drum. A wave of force burst outward, and Wolverine crumpled to the floor. His skull momentarily fractured. Blood poured from his ears. Still, he moved. He always moved. Piotr staggered back, panting. Metallic blood dripped freely from his arms, chest, and shoulder, where Wolverine had punctured deep. His metal skin was resilient, but it wasn't impenetrable, and Wolverine knew exactly where to cut. "You don't know when to stop, do you?" Piotr rasped. Logan lifted his head slowly, eyes wild, lips curled back in a snarl. "You should have known that the day I joined this team." With one final surge of primal fury, Wolverine launched forward like a torpedo. He rolled beneath Colossus's attempted grab, sprang up behind him, and buried both claws into the back of Piotr's left knee. A howl ripped through the air. Colossus buckled, his balance shattered. Wolverine didn't give him a moment to recover. He leapt onto Piotr's shoulders, wrapped his arms around his neck again, and this time drove his right claw through the side of Colossus's throat, right where the flexible armor gave room for movement. It was a surgical strike, painful, disabling, but not fatal. Colossus roared, flailing, but it was too late. With the steel giant on one knee, bleeding and wheezing, Wolverine jumped down, walked in front of him, and placed both claws inches from his chest. They stood face to face, brothers broken by different beliefs. Piotr's breathing was ragged. Silver blood oozed from his mouth. His hands trembled. "You've won," he whispered. Wolverine stood still. The wildness in his eyes slowly faded into a quiet sorrow. "I didn't want this," Logan murmured. "But if I didn't stop you, someone else would have done worse." Piotr nodded weakly. "Then finish it." Logan retracted his claws with a metallic snikt. "No," he said, "not like this. You're still my brother. You always will be." Colossus collapsed to the floor unconscious. His form slowly shifted back to flesh, battered and bruised but alive. Wolverine turned away, breathing hard, his chest rising and falling like a war drum, slowly quieting. The room was destroyed, walls cracked, metal twisted, floor broken open in places. Blood, steel and scorch marks marked every surface, and in the center stood Logan alone, victorious, but not untouched, not in his heart.